The music swelled inside the glittering ballroom, and for a moment, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Everyone watched as the elegant woman in a silver gown, the CEO everyone whispered about, walked straight toward a man standing awkwardly at the edge of the dance floor. He wasn't in a tuxedo like the others. His tie was crooked, his hands rough, his eyes full of quiet humility. She stopped in front of him, extended her hand, and said softly, "Dance with me." And that was the moment everything changed for Daniel Hayes, a single dad who never thought he'd stand out in a room like this. Daniel hadn't wanted to come to the wedding. He barely knew the groom, just a co-worker who'd insisted that everyone from the office attend. For him, events like this only reminded him how different his life had become since Emily, his wife, passed away 3 years ago. Back then, he used to be the kind of man who laughed easily, who danced without needing a drink first. Now, his world revolved around one small person, his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. He'd promised Lily he'd be back before bedtime, but somehow, he'd been convinced to stay a little longer. "You'll enjoy it," his co-worker said. "There'll be food, music, maybe even someone special." But Daniel wasn't looking for someone special. He was still figuring out how to smile again. The ballroom felt like a dream. Chandeliers glowed above silk-draped tables. Laughter floated through the air like bubbles in champagne. Daniel stood in the corner, nursing a glass of water, feeling like an outsider. He wasn't rich, wasn't powerful. He was just a mechanic, hands calloused, shirt too plain, heart still mending. That's when he noticed her, Samantha Linwood, the CEO of Linwood Holdings. Everyone knew her name, her empire, her poise. But Daniel didn't know she was this breathtaking. She wasn't smiling like the magazines made her appear. She looked tired. Alone. Like someone who carried too much on her shoulders but had no one to share the weight with. He didn't realize she'd caught him watching until she smiled. A real one, small, gentle, unexpected. He looked away instantly, embarrassed, but moments later, she was there. Standing right in front of him, as if she'd stepped out of another world. "You look like you hate weddings," she said, her voice low and calm. He blinked. "No, I just don't really fit in." "Neither do I," she replied with a smirk that didn't quite hide her sadness. "Come on. Let's change that." Before he could respond, she took his hand. Her fingers were soft, yet firm, leading him toward the center of the dance floor as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Daniel's heart pounded. "Wait, I don't dance," he stammered. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering beneath the golden light. "Then just move with me. Sometimes, that's all life asks for." And so, he did. Awkward at first, then slowly finding rhythm. The world blurred until it was just the two of them, two lonely souls swaying to a melody neither could have predicted. When the song ended, she held onto his hand a second longer than she should have. "You're not like anyone here," she whispered. "I needed that." He smiled faintly. "So did I." But as soon as he turned to leave, her assistant appeared, pulling her back into the whirlwind of powerful people and empty conversations. Daniel watched her go, wondering why his chest suddenly felt so heavy. 2 weeks later, Daniel was back under the hood of a car, grease staining his hands, the smell of oil and rain mixing in the air. He hadn't thought about the wedding much, at least, that's what he told himself. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. The way she'd looked at him like he was someone worth noticing. Lily ran up to him with her backpack, her eyes bright. "Daddy! There's a fancy lady outside asking for you." He frowned. A fancy lady? Before he could wipe his hands, he saw her, Samantha Linwood, standing in the doorway of his small repair shop, dressed in jeans and a simple coat. She looked almost normal. "Hi," she said, a nervous smile tugging at her lips. "I hope you remember me." He couldn't help but chuckle. "Hard to forget someone who made me dance." She laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I was in the area. My car broke down a few blocks away. Thought maybe fate was being dramatic." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Fate or engine trouble?" "Maybe both," she said with a grin. While he worked on her car, they talked about everything and nothing. She told him how success wasn't as golden as people imagined. How her late nights were spent in silence, staring at city lights that didn't comfort her anymore. He told her about Lily, about losing his wife, about learning to be both mother and father. For the first time in years, Samantha felt seen. Not as a CEO, not as someone admired for her power, but as a woman, human, imperfect, searching for something real. As she prepared to leave, Lily tugged her sleeve. "Are you coming back?" Samantha knelt down, smiling warmly. "Do you want me to?" Lily nodded. "Daddy smiles when you're here." Samantha's eyes softened, and for a moment, words failed her. In the weeks that followed, she did come back, sometimes for coffee, sometimes with excuses about her car. Soon, the visits turned into dinners, laughter filling the small home that had once been so quiet. Daniel found himself looking forward to every knock on the door, every shared smile across the table, but reality has a way of testing fragile hearts. One morning, headlines splashed across every screen: CEO Samantha Linwood engaged to business tycoon. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't call her. Didn't ask for explanations. He'd always known she belonged to a world far from his. Maybe the dance was just a fleeting moment, beautiful, but temporary. Days later, she arrived at his shop again, breathless, tears threatening to fall. "It's not true," she said. "The engagement, it's business. A deal my board wanted." "I didn't agree. Because I can't pretend anymore, Daniel. Not when I know what real feels like." He stared at her, unsure if he dared to believe it. "You don't owe me anything." She stepped closer, taking his hand just like that night at the wedding. "No," she whispered, "but I want to. Dance with me again, Daniel. This time, for real." He looked into her eyes, honest, trembling, full of hope, and something inside him finally healed, and as they swayed again under the quiet hum of his workshop radio, grease-stained floor beneath their feet, laughter mixing with tears, Daniel realized something: love doesn't wait for perfect timing or fancy invitations. Sometimes, it finds you when you least expect it, in the middle of broken things, reminding you that you're still whole. And that night, when Lily peeked out from her room and saw them together, she whispered softly to herself, "Daddy's dancing again." And for the first time in a long time, he truly was.